those who have known me for a while know that one of the issues that I care most deeply about is workplace bullying. Workplace bullying is something that I have been through as a target of workplace bullying. It's what inspired me to do my doctoral dissertation all about how young professionals cope with being the target of workplace bullying. And it's something that keeps coming up over and over and over again because, let's just be honest for a second, Me Too movement aside, the vast majority of workplaces still have not wrapped their heads around what workplace bullying looks like and how to tackle it in their organization. And this issue was brought to light to me again, most recently, in a couple different ways. Number one, last week I had one of the most heartbreaking coaching discovery calls that I've had in a while because it was with a young woman who experienced being the target of workplace bullying at her place of employment, and she did everything right. She did absolutely everything right. She documented every instance. She reported it to HR. She went through all the steps that someone should go through, in theory, when they are the target of workplace bullying. And HR did nothing. They did nothing to help her. And ultimately, she ended up leaving the organization and is in a new position now where she's trying not to repeat the same pattern. But I had to really explain to her that it didn't matter if it seemed fair or just, but this is really what most people go through when they are the target of workplace bullying. In the vast majority of bullying cases, I strongly recommend that people don't even go to HR. Now, this is not even a recommendation I want to make, but the reality is that when most people go to HR when they are the target of workplace bullying, and by the way, that only happens about 40% of the time, only 40% of the time it's actually reported, but most of the time when people report it to human resources, not only does HR do nothing, but there is actually retribution inflicted on the target. And that retribution can come in a couple different ways. First of all, when someone is under the pressure of being a target of workplace bullying, the fact that the organization is doing absolutely nothing to help them cannot be considered a neutral act. It has to be considered an act in favor of the aggressor in the situation because this poor target is still out there without anyone to have their back. Other ways that organizations might go back against the target is they might just really go out of their way to make their lives miserable, transfer them to a different position, or in a lot of cases, and this certainly happened to me, the target is actually the one that ultimately ends up getting fired in the situation, while the bully just sticks around and continues to do what they do and continues to spread workplace bullying throughout the organization. And I had to take a step back and explain to this person that I had the discovery call with that it is an incredibly unfair situation, but what she experienced with doing all the right things, with going to HR, with asking for help, with providing documentation, with providing evidence, I had to explain to her that it was very, very typical that she would not be helped. And for some targets of workplace bullying, just having this understanding that it is a very typical act for HR not to help people when they need it the absolute most, that gives them some reprieve because there was literally nothing that they could have done in the situation. Literally nothing. Now, a lot of times when people are the target of workplace bullying and HR doesn't do anything, the very first excuse I hear is, Carlin, we don't know what the definition of workplace bullying is. We don't know what it is, and therefore we can't attack it. Well, I'm going to give you the definition today. We're going to talk about workplace bullying today. We're going to look at an article that a friend of mine just sent me about a workplace bullying case at a college, and we're actually going to take another look and get an update on a story I covered a couple of weeks ago about a different workplace bullying situation at a completely different college. But before we do that, two quick things. Number one, I have a lot of new subscribers to this channel because of my article recently going viral. Hey guys, listen, I know that my article went viral was about politics. It was never really my intention for it to go viral, but you can't really control these things sometimes. So welcome to my channel. Now, the reality is, most of the videos I make on this channel are going to be about the workplace. maybe sometimes I'll bring some politics stuff into it too, just to keep it interesting. And I generally think that politics are a pretty great example for almost anything. So don't be, don't think that you might not see that stuff come up. But we do focus on the workplace on this channel. Now, if you like what you find so far, if you like real talk about the workplace, go ahead and hit subscribe. You'll get a notification every time I post a new video. If you also want to give me a thumbs up, share the content out with your friends or networks, that would be really amazing too. Number 2, as I mentioned, I'm talking about this partially because I had a coaching discovery call with a potential new client last week who has been the target of workplace bullying. But workplace bullying is not the only thing I provide coaching around. I provide coaching around any number of things related to the work environment, whether I'm focusing on individuals or groups or executives or what have you. If you are interested in creating a better experience or doing leadership development with some members of your team, stuff like that, you want to reach out to me, schedule a time for a free discovery call just so I can understand what your situation is, what you're looking for, and we can explore if I'm a good match for you. In order to do that, you want to head over to zenworkplace.com/coaching and just click on this link to schedule your free discovery session. It's going to bring you to a little form. Just fill it out and I will be in touch with you. All right, but let's get into it. So to really support our topic here today, what I want to do is talk about the definition of workplace bullying, and then we're going to look at some examples. Now, what I'm showing you here, this is a document that I've created based off of a very common measuring tool to measure workplace bullying. And if you want this document, all you need to do is get in touch with me. Just head over to zenworkplace.com, hit the contact link, send me an email. I will send it to you for free, no questions asked, because I think that this is really, really important to get out there in the world. So the very first thing I do in this document is I define what workplace bullying is. Workplace bullying is defined as the experience of repeated and unwelcomed negative acts, such as criticism and humiliation, occurring at a place of employment that are intended to cause fear, distress, or harm to the target from one or more individuals in any source of power over the target, where the target has difficulties defending him or herself. Now, this definition came from a literature review that was one of the better literature reviews when I was working on my dissertation about the topic, and it really aggregates all the core components of workplace bullying together. There are other definitions of workplace bullying out there, but I think for my money, this is the best one. Now, the key word in this that I want you to keep in mind is repeated. Workplace bullying is not usually a one-off experience. Rather, it is a combination of harmful behaviors over time. And those behaviors can take a variety of different forms. So there's really 3 different types of bullying that we're looking for. There's bullying related to your work. There's bullying related to just your person, and then there's violence and aggression. And the violence one, we'll actually skip down here to the end. So being shouted at, the target of spontaneous anger, behaviors intended to intimidate, such as finger pointing, invasion of personal space, shoving, blocking the way, the target of sexual harassment or innuendo. Those actually tend to be the rarest forms of workplace bullying. Much more commonly, the bullying will be a combination of several factors related to either the core functions of someone's job or someone as a person. So those might include things like, let's see, having information withheld that affects their performance, having continuous assignments that are below their level of competency, having their opinions repeatedly ignored, being tasked repeatedly, consistently with meeting unreasonable deadlines, having work excessively micromanaged, pressure not to take advantage of job benefits like vacation, sick time, reimbursements, things like that, carrying an unmanageable workload, experience being humiliated or ridiculed, having key areas of responsibility removed and replaced with more trivial or unpleasant tasks, having gossip or rumors spread about you, being purposefully ignored or excluded from your team, having insulting or offensive remarks made, hints or signals that you should quit your job, repeatedly being reminded of errors and mistakes that you've made. And again, we're talking about over extended periods of time here. So these things by itself, if you were reminded once of an error that you made, that's not workplace bullying. But if you are repeatedly reminded of the same error on an ongoing basis, and they're throwing maybe other errors in there and they're doing other things on top of it, and this is occurring over the course of months, yeah, that starts to get into workplace bullying territory. Other aspects of it, having practical jokes played on you by people you don't get along with, having allegations made against you that are just untrue, or being the subject of excessive teasing or sarcasm. Now, all of these things, or not all of them, because the ones in the dark, those are the most those are the most overt. But most of this stuff in the blue or in the orange, these things just seem like if they were to happen once, you might not even think about it. Right? You might be like, oh, that was kind of unpleasant, but you don't really think about it as workplace bullying necessarily. And that's part of the problem. Because most of the time when it comes to workplace bullying, people start to experience just these little onesie and twosie things here or there. They don't really think too much of it. They don't like it, but they're not going to worry about it. They're not going to make a big fuss. And it escalates over time with the situations getting more and more severe, more aspects of bullying come in, it starts to happen more often, they start to be more aggressive, and over time it reaches a boiling point. And most people only recognize that they are the target of workplace bullying when it reaches that absolute boiling point. All right, so if you want this document, again, go to zenworkplace.com, shoot me an email. I will send it to you. I have no problem doing that as long as you promise me that you are actually going to use it. But let's get into our stories, shall we? So a friend of mine sent me this story about a UW administrator said to be taking a leave in the turmoil of his wake. Now, both the stories we're going to look at today deal with higher education. Higher education as an industry tends to have workplace bullying happen at about double the rate of the average industry. So the average industry has about 30% of people in it have been the target of workplace bullying. In higher education, it's about 62%. 62% of people working at colleges and universities have been a target of this, and this has been consistent over time, right? So it is an industry that is especially prone to this. I have lots of theories about why that is. I spent about 10 years in higher education, and yeah, it's not always the easiest industry to work in. It also explains a lot of dysfunction we see in administration at colleges. So the two stories we're going to deal with today do have to do with that industry. So let's take a look. And this is actually from the student newspaper, by the way, which I thought was really interesting that this stuff got reported in the student newspaper. Hey, good for them. Courage and power. Ultimately, that's what Heather Pearson said she gained from a phone conversation in mid-December 2018. The call was with John Yancey. He'd been the assistant vice president for enrollment services at the University of North Florida, where Albert Colm worked before becoming vice chancellor for enrollment services at UW. A colleague who had a friend at UNF gave Pearson his phone number. Consistently, Colm created what can only be called a hostile work environment, and good people made difficult choices in order to survive. Listen, already, this doesn't actually surprise me at all in this case. The very first instance that I actually encountered in workplace bullying was in an enrollment office at a college. The vice president was out of her mind, and she ultimately ended up getting fired, which, I took a little bit of satisfaction in, but I was already gone at that point, so it didn't really help me much. Pearson already knew his story, she said, because of what happened at UNF was happening again at UW. An ongoing Spectator investigation highlights a pattern of Colm's behavior. Current and former UNF and Oklahoma State University employees say Colm fires or forces people out in order to build his department with staff loyal to him. And he is successful at gaining support from those who hire him. Ooh, this is a really important point. And he is successful at gaining support from those who hire him. Workplace bullies, there's actually research to show that workplace bullies are very, very good at playing the office politics game. They know how to ingratiate themselves to the people they report to, so they're never the ones that get in trouble. They're always the good ones. It's all of these other people that are the bad ones, or they're just exaggerating, or, maybe they just don't want to come and work hard or all these things. So don't be surprised if you have workplace bullies that are just very charismatic, very good at playing the game, because research tells us that they are of a personality type, usually, not always, but usually, that knows how to get away with it. After she got her first email from Yancey, Pearson gathered the other women from the admissions office who witnessed Combs' behavior and shared what she'd learned. I think there was power in that understanding, Pearson said. Over the next few weeks, they received 3 more anonymous statements from Yancey, forward from former colleagues. The women gained more courage with each other as each read the story with each story they read. There's that moment when you realize that what you've been witnessing at your own university isn't something that you're overreacting to. It isn't something that you're reading into. It's a very real experience. Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. Because a lot of times when people are the targets of workplace bullying, they feel like they're going insane. They really do. They look at it, they're like, am I the problem here? Am I doing something to deserve this? No. You're probably not doing anything to deserve it. It's probably coming at you from someone who has very real issues with control. All right, University of North Florida. John Yancey met Colm in 1998. At first, the two got along. I met Albert when he was the director of admissions for Florida Atlantic University. I might actually know some of these people. How crazy would that be? This is like the time period when I was working in admissions, and admissions is a small world and everyone knows everyone. I may have actually met some of these people at one point. Yancey said in an interview last week, and I have to tell you that initially I liked Albert a lot. I thought he was funny. I thought he was a kind of charismatic in a flippant way at that point in time, and I thought in what I thought was a harmless way. And he was just someone who was fun to be around and hang out with. Told you, workplace bullies know how to be charismatic. They know how to play the game. Yancey said he was part of the hiring process when Colm applied to be Associate Vice President for Enrollment at UNF in 2013. Midway through the process, many administrators, including John Delaney, the president of the university, received an anonymous email. Yancey said it warned them about Colm calling him a horrible man and to watch out. Delaney chose to ignore the email because it was anonymous. Of course he did. Colm started his job at UNF in the summer of 2014. Yancey's phone buzzed in his pocket. It was September 12th, 2014, and he was on stage presenting on behalf of UNF at an event. He ignored the call, finished his presentation, and answered audience questions. Then Yancey stepped outside of the building to check his phone. It was a missed call from Colm. Yancey dialed his cell. Hey, what's going on? Asked. Colm wanted to fire the university registrar, the director of enrollment services technology, and the assistant director of enrollment service marketing and publications. When asked why, he said they were all against him. Okay, for those of you who don't work in higher education, these are important positions. And these are also not together like easy positions to fill with people who have that kind of expertise and experience. And also, most of the time, people who are in those positions tend to have a lot of historical knowledge about the university that is very, very costly to use. So to want to fire everyone all at once, simply because you don't like them or you don't feel like they're on your team, you have not done your job as a boss. You have not done your job as a leader. It is your job as a leader to bring people around to your team. I don't know why I have to keep saying this over and over and over again. What do you guys think leadership is? Jeez. They met later that day to discuss Colm's plan. The meeting took several hours. That's tuition dollars well spent right there. Yancey said he was trying to understand Colm's reasoning. Colm was frustrated because higher-ups told him he couldn't fire the registrar, the director of enrollment services technology. Good. But he could fire the assistant director. It's always the lower-level people that end up taking the brunt of this crap. I swear to God. The assistant director was a young single mother. She wasn't the best hire, he admitted, but she was new and coachable. He didn't care. Okay, leaders, it is your job to coach people. It is part of the job, for crying out loud. I'm not investing anything in her. What a great boss. I mean, listen, that's like warning signal number 1. If you have someone in a leadership position who is downright refusing to do their job, to invest in their employees, why are you continuing to invest in them as an organization? I just don't understand it. It makes no sense. All right, listen. Okay, so this is Yancey talking about what happened next. He said, John, how many people have you fired? I said, Albert, I've been in the business here at UNF for 16 years now, and I probably fired 10 to 11 people. I said that every time I fired a person, I lost sleep the night before because I knew that even though firing them was a right decision from a business standpoint, there was a human cost to that decision. Those people had mortgages and families and bills and car payments and food to put on the table, and the action I was going to take that next day was going to negatively impact that. And from a human standpoint, I lost sleep every time. Those are exactly the feelings you should be having when you're firing someone. That's what a normal human does. Sometimes you have to fire people. It is the price of being in leadership. Sometimes it just needs to happen. But the minute that we eliminate the human perspective from these things is the minute like all of this stuff is lost. And I'll never forget it. He looked at me, and I hope you'll please excuse my language. He looked at me and said, "John, that's because you're a P," we can guess. "That's because you're a P and you'll never be anything in this business." All right. The next day, Yancey said, Colm fired the assistant and told her she had to clear out her desk and leave campus immediately. Wow. Colm told the HR rep to help her pick up her things and walk her to the car. He sounds like oh my gosh. A cake waited at her desk, Yancey said. It was her birthday. It was her birthday. And I bet she had no warning it was coming. I bet there was no performance improvement plan. I bet she had no chance to improve. This is just insanity. This is not how UNF employees are usually fired. Why did HR even let this happen? This is I'm not going to go on a rant because this is already going to be a long video, but HR should never have let this happen. This is ridiculous. This is not how UNF employees are usually fired. Only in extreme circumstances are people escorted from the campus immediately, and this was not a situation that warranted that approach. He was sending a message to everyone else. Get her a box, clean her desk, walk her out in front of everyone in the office. Everybody knows, down the stairs to her car. This was not, again, as much as what he did, as much as it was, let me make a show. Let me show you I'm the big dog in the yard. And if you don't, fall in line, then you're next. Workplace bullying is a power game. It always has been, it always will be. And that's exactly the message he was sending. At this point, Yancey said, he was beginning to get fed up, but he stayed as long as he could in his position. He was constantly arguing with Colm, who wanted him fired, because that's how workplace bullies deal with the situation. Get it out, get it out, get it out. Yancey said to UNF President Delaney, with staff testimonials and laid out the situation. Delaney said he was giving Colm some room to shape the department. Yeah, okay. Yancey told Delaney he wanted to tender his resignation, but Delaney resisted. Yancey took a different position within the university. Word of Colm's behavior followed Yancey into his new role. He heard about Colm's vindictive bullying from coworkers. The stories started to take an emotional toll on Yancey, who felt he deserted his colleagues. The mark of a good person right there. You can tell this guy's he's a good, decent human being. How sad that he ended up in this. Years later, Yancey said he was naive for trusting the hiring process that brought Colm to UNF. After he spoke to Pearson on the phone in January 2019, he typed up what he knew about him. "I'm writing this to you because I fear the same thing will happen or likely is already happening at UW. If he is already targeting you, he views you as a threat." All right. So then we have some other instances here. We've got instances from Bowling Green State University, Oklahoma State University. And then we get to UW. UW Shared Services investigation into allegations against Colm began this week. In a statement released Wednesday, Chancellor James Schmidt said he can't comment on personnel matters. Of course, because you only take taxpayer money at a publicly funded university. You can't comment on personnel matters when they're being paid by the taxpayer. Obviously not. He sent the email to staff, faculty, and news media after more than a week of refusing to speak publicly about the matter. Schmidt encouraged the campus community to be patient with the investigation. He urged staff to cooperate fully with the investigation without fear of retribution. If I was those staff, I would never. No. In his two media statements since the allegation, Colm has become public. Schmidt refers to as the first official complaint. Okay, so that pretty much is the end of the story. So listen, what we see here is someone with an obvious history of workplace bullying that keeps getting hired at these colleges who apparently don't do anything until it hits the absolute fan. Or in like at least 3 cases, it doesn't even look like University of North Florida did anything. He just left. So Cohen worked at Bowling Green from 2009 to 2014. And then it looks like he also worked at Oklahoma State. So these colleges aren't even like doing anything about this. He's just going from college to college to college, wreaking havoc. Hopefully, this is his last stop. Honestly. Or, maybe like get him in a position where, listen, sometimes workplace bullies have strengths that they bring to positions, but they should not be in positions that require them to manage people. That is just insane. Crazy town. So that's one instance of workplace bullying. It sounds like UW is on the case. Listen, I really hope they do something about this, and I'm going to keep an eye on this. I know a lot of people who work in this system. It was actually sent to me by someone with ties to this system. So, I really hope they take care of it. The people that work at these colleges, especially in places like UW, they're good people. They're like good, like salt of the earth people. They come in, they do their business. Most of the time, they're not bothering anyone. They're not causing trouble. They don't deserve to be in a working environment with someone who's actively trying to make their life miserable. It's just not okay. All right, but the second story I wanted to talk about is actually, I'm like so excited about this story. So a couple weeks ago, I did this video about 3 staffers at Harvard Community College being fired for improperly speculating about employees. And they actually had a betting pool about when employees were going to leave, and it was just completely inappropriate. And I said in that video that the president of this college should be fired because they absolutely knew what was going on. There is no way that at a community college, this president, with the people that were involved, did not know what was going on, and this was all trickling down from the top. Well, bing, bing, bing. What do we have here? President of HCC resigns. The president of Harvard Community College has resigned effective immediately, and an interim president has been named. The president of Harvard Community College has resigned, the board of trustees announced. Diana Phillips, PhD, resigned effective Monday, according to the board. This was like a couple weeks ago. The board sincerely thanks Dr. Phillips for her contributions to the college over the past 3 years. Yeah, I bet they do. Great climate she created. During her tenure, Dr. Phillips facilitated an inclusive strategic planning process, strengthened the college partnerships with Harford County Public Schools, and fostered an optimal learning experience for students. An optimal experience that included employees placing bets on whether or not other employees would quit. It's just, really great. Officials will not comment further on the reason for Phillips' abrupt departure, since it was a personnel matter. 3 administrators were dismissed from the college in early January because of conversations they had about other employees using their work email accounts, according to, I don't know how to pronounce that, which stated it was not apparent whether that was related to the resignation of Phillips. Come on. Please. Can we please, why aren't journalists actual journalists anymore? I don't understand this. These two are obviously connected. Jesus Christ. I mean, I don't know, this is a community college. This is not big earth-shattering national news, but come on. And they've named an interim president. All right, so yay, well done, Harvard Community College Board. Yes, you made the right decision. That person needed to be fired because they cultivated an environment in which senior leadership at the college was betting on their employees. Not okay. Of all the things I need to explain, I don't know why I have to keep coming back to this stupid nonsense. This stuff is not okay. What are you doing? Jesus Christ.